Professor Black Ops, you see it. Let's get it. Home Depot hammered by supply chain data breach. We know supply chain is huge this year. Everybody's trying to get their vendor assessment, supply chain assessment, risk assessment. So let's read into the article. A SaaS vendor to blame for exposing employee data that was ultimately leaked on the dark web forum, according to home improvement retailer. Hacking Forum leaked has led to Home Depot to confirm that its employees' data was compromised via third-party software vendor. So the big thing since the Casillas hack is you have to review your third-party software. You have to do a risk assessment, compliance check, and all of the above because third parties just getting everybody hacked. Home Depot did not identify the breached software as a service vendor, but said an error exposed the names, corporate IDs, email, addresses of a small sample of its employees. Now for sale on the dark web, this is the type of data that can be used to fuel targeted phishing cyber attacks. The incident highlights how selecting SaaS vendors with strong cybersecurity protection is critical for enterprise, according to Tamir, Director of Product with Due Control. Software supply chain cyber risk. PASI recommends testing a third-party supplier workflow before providing them access to your data. Ideally, real employee data should not be used to test a new vendor's workflow. In general, system testing and validation should be done with non-production data sets, unless all the necessary same security, privacy protocols are in place for that type of testing. Caution that once data is handed over to the partner, it's too late to do anything about security. In addition, due diligence and vetting prior to selecting a SaaS vendor recommends regular audits. So everybody know I'm a NIST guy, so NIST said you should do an audit once a year. So the threat landscape is always changing, so continuous training on security best practices are vital. Employees and security professionals at all levels should be equipped to recognize and respond to potential threats, including those that may arise from third-party sources. A decade ago, Home Depot had experienced a much larger data breach where customers' credit card data related to purchase at stores and in the United States and Canada was compromised. So once again, SaaS vendor, they believe was the issue of the software breach. So let's look at and I think I've done a couple videos on vendors assessment, risk assessment. So let's look at a light template to see what kind of review you would use to look at those once again to do those type of assessments and I guess to make yourself more secure. Let's see. Make sure I can see it. So there's just a template I use, and I'm supposed to do a video and walk through some. People have questions, I guess, about this, especially from a small to mid-sized company. So let's kind of walk through what a high-level vendor risk assessment is, especially from the compliance standpoint. So the first thing you want to do is you see it. You want to what company are you reviewing? Once again, most people know I do NIST. What the company and the software you're looking at. Right. Then if you go down, let me get on that page. You want to review their security documentation, including their security policies, procedure, incident response plan, business continuity plan, and ensure that they comply with the security data level. And that's the next line right there, data classification. So depending on what type of data you have in there, is it non-PII, PII, which is personal identifiable information, confidential, company secrets, company network diagrams, companies' proprietary data, which will be confidential. And the other part of that, are you dealing with federal data, aka federal tax information, HIPAA information, child welfare information? each one of those levels is going to tell you what level of security you need to secure your data or even do a review at. Right. So once you figure out what level of data you're at, then two is what security do you want to level of that data do you want to handle, right? If it's federal data, we know it's on a different level. You start talking about super encryption, VPNs, data protection zones inside your network, or is it just some people's laptop, like some visualization data that once again is not PI or confidential? You're just summarizing some data, right? So the data classification is going to tell you once again what level you should be securing at. And two, what common threats is. So usually I start, if it's basic data, these are probably I call those the big three: ransomware, phishing, and malware. Phishing is going to get the ransomware on your laptop, or the phishing is going to get malware on there. Even if it's a SaaS, you could be downloading documents, downloading stuff into your organization from your SaaS. So these probably I call them the big three main threats you want to look at. Then two is, what internally do you have to protect you against those? What's your mitigation controls against ransomware, phishingware, and malware, right? Once again, most people have Windows Defender. Those is common. What level of Windows Defender do you have? Malware, of course, they got the advanced. You got log analytics. You got Sentinel, right? So what level of Windows Defender do you have? And two, once again, there's a ton of utilities and program. Once again, malware, virus protection, data links, bad IPs are in Windows. Once again, depending on what level you purchase in there. Two, network segmentation. Is it just on your laptop software? Do you have it in the database? Do you have it in the cloud? Is the cloud synced up with a VPN tunnel to your corporation, right? So all of those architecture decisions and your data classification is going to tell you what level of security review do you need to be doing, right? Once again, network segmentations, hopefully using a VPN, hopefully using MFA, hopefully using some zero trust. So usually your company has mitigations of what they pay for and what set up. So your threats and your software tell you what you have in place to help protect you from that. But two, we know you have 0 days. We know people getting clever by taking your session from your MFA and impersonating you. So there's a way to get around a lot of these things, but hopefully you have those in place and you can keep adding defensive depth to improve your company. So, and two is, at the end, your CISO or your board or whatever you're using should reject or accept the software, right? That shows you have organizational control. That shows you have reviews. That show, like we're talking about, what's the risk of this software if you don't have a certain particular mitigation control, right? Then once again, what's your risk level? Is it federal tax information and you don't have zero trust, so your risk is high, right? So that's where the vendor assessment tool, and you as a management team, take all this in consideration and make a decision on if you're going to accept or reject the software. And two is, I see a lot of non-supported software, meaning it's out of date, it's not getting security patches. Data processing agreement, even with software as a service, if you look on there, they got privacy controls, data processing, data privacy. All of those links are on websites now. So you need to review that to figure out what type of risk you're accepting for the company. And two, what's your artifacts you need to do when you get audited or auditor comes on site? So usually I get the company URL page. Usually they have a security page. Usually they have a privacy page. Usually they talk about encryption at rest, encryption in transit. Two is, I usually figure out how they're making money. Are they selling our data to make money? If it's federal data, CONUS is just continental United States. Their data center should have all your data in the United States or United States territory. Right, vulnerabilities, right, their CVEs. Have they had vulnerabilities? Did they fix them? How long did they fix them? And how many they have? You having a vulnerability is not a big deal, right? If you have one every couple of years, that's not a huge deal, right? As long as you fixing, you turn around and got it fixed, got the patches out to your clients, all right? Working with the community in your CVs. And two, the references. Once again, these are IRS, Pub 1075, and NIST. So they talk about having the fair ramp boundaries, talking about having cloud security checks with the cloud CSM, Office of Safeguard, and NIST, CM4, security and privacy impact analysis. So that's the security family we're satisfying right there. Determine potential security and privacy impact prior to the change of the implementation or new software becoming in there. PL2, system security and privacy plans. Develop a security and privacy plan for the system. Provide the results of the privacy risk assessment for systems processing PII, personally identified information. That's part of what this document does. All right, it's going to be a privacy and risk assessment. Your leadership is going to know the risk they're accepting. RA3 risk assessment. Conduct a risk assessment, including identifying threats and vulnerabilities, determining the likelihood and magnitude of harm of unauthorized systems, determining the likelihood and impact of adverse effects on individuals, integrate the risk assessment results and risk management decisions from the organization and mission, document the risk assessment results in the system, security plans, and risk. So once we get this done, we usually save it in our GRC software, or we could just save it in our team's in our team's directory structure where we have our risk assessment. So when auditors come in, it's in one place, right? Enhanced control, assess supply chain risk for federal tax information, or basically federal systems. They want you to do a supply risk every 3 years. I think they just switched it to every year. But at a high level, that's what you need to do to make sure the software you're using are as far as Home Depot, your SaaS software, whatever they were buying, is reviewed. So hopefully you won't get hacked. Hopefully you won't end up in the news, and hopefully you won't get sued, right? Everybody's doing class action lawsuit. So that's it at a high level. Like I said, I got some videos. I'll probably do a couple more vendor SaaS software risk assessment. Once again, Home Depot hammered by supply chain data breach. Come on, Home Depot. Come on, Home Depot. We got to do a better job. Once again, Professor Black Ops, please subscribe.